Hi guys, welcome back to my video tutorial. I just watched back the first one and I hate myself for my voice because it's horrible. But anyway, self-hating aside, let's go to standard. So I'm going to show you how to unwrap this in a really unconventional kind of half-assed way, to be honest. So I'm going to click and drag all of these elements. I'm going to use my output node, assign to selection, making sure to hit that sphere or a circle. Alright, so now I'm going to go to my modify tab, hit UV map, and you could select each element, but I'm just gonna do this really quick. I'm gonna go into Gizmo right there and then scale all of this in so it's nice and square. But as you can see, it does kind of warp that a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do first is I'm going to go here, hit reset XForm, do reset to selected, okay, and now convert to editable poly, because as you see it says XForm right there. So let's try this again. Maybe it doesn't warp it so much. Alright, yep, you can see it doesn't warp it. Okay. So now that we do that, we're not really paying attention to textile density, so this, like I said, is like kind of a half-baked method. So go to unwrap UVW, do open UV editor. This is what I do when I'm in a pinch and I have like way too much content. So I just go to, I select it all, I go to tools, I go to pack UVs, and then I press OK. And it does a really shoddy job. It's like so bad, but don't worry about that because it looks like mostly good. And then we do convert to editable poly. So for this, I'm going to bring it into Substance Painter, but in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do ZBrush. Okay, so I'm going to use ZBrush on this wall just because the most basic. So I'm going to export this by setting it to the 0, 0, 0 in the world, the origin. And then I'm going to UV map it just really quick. Actually, I don't even have to UV unwrap it because I'm actually going to unwrap it in ZBrush. So I'm going to export selected, just do tutorial. You can call it whatever you want, then press OK. OK. So then go ahead and fire up ZBrush if you have it. The school computer should have it, so you're in luck because it's like $400 with a student license, so it's incredibly expensive. $1,000 without a student license. Okay. So I actually use the free trial a lot. Don't tell anyone, but okay, so what we can do is we can click out a basic sphere or whatever shape. We're not going to keep this. Immediately press edit. Otherwise, you'll just infinitely be drawing it and it's stupid. So go to import, and actually I should have imported it, or exported it, sorry, as an OBJ file, because that's what it reads. Sometimes it reads FBXs, but I just like to stick with OBJs, just because it's easier. I'll show you why in a sec. I apologize if that was like super loud. It was on mine, so. Okay. And for some reason it didn't export. Let's try this again. Oh, here we go. Okay. So now you press import. And okay, I thought that was going to be an issue. Hang on just one second, let me see. Okay, I was just saying if you could see this. Alright. So you want to hit perspective, because this is actually how it's going to look. But you could turn it off. It's just I use it for faces a lot because otherwise it'll kind of just give you false information as to how it actually looks. Okay, so this is the subtool. This is just like the object in 3ds Max, but they're just divided into tools. If you press divide on this, it's going to divide super weird. So what you actually want to do first is you want to go to Tool. You want to go to Make Polymesh 3D. This is going to allow you to draw on it, but we don't want to draw on it quite yet because, as you can see, if we press Shift F, you can see it's only one polygon. So that's pretty weak. You want to go to turn off SMT and just divide it. You can divide it like 6 times. I usually stick with 5 just because it's like unnecessary after that point. So you can draw on it, as you can see. Maybe it is necessary. This is pretty low poly. Okay, that's a bit better. Alternatively, you could use, if I go to Append, this is adding another subtool. I click on this, I disable the visibility for this, and I make sure I'm on this one, which does have visibility. I can see it starts out with a lot more polygons. So that's why I said you only need 5 for like this one, if you want to do something like this. And then make sure we have SMT turned off, because that smooths it out. As you can see, we have so many more polygons to work with. I'm going to stick with my model, though. Okay. And if you press Control Z, it actually does Control Z for the object that you're on, so it won't undo all your progress. Like, say you messed up on one tool, but you liked your progress on the other tool, don't worry, because you can just select the tool that you messed up on and Control Z like however many times you want, and Control Shift Z if you messed up, and if you liked the detail you did, you just redo it. Okay. So what I see on the reference images is that I see there's a lot of paneling, especially for this one. This is our main reference that I want to show. Okay, so you have like some detailing here, paneling. So just separate it into separate sections in ZBrush. So I'm going to do transform. I'm going to activate symmetry. And I'm going to subdivide it one more because it's really weak sauce. Okay, so if you click and then you press shift and then you drag, you can get a nice straight line. You know what, forget this. I'm going to use the other one because that just like sucks. Okay, so I'm going to use this default square. This is a bit better. Divide it more so we get a nice smooth line. Make sure we have transform on this object. Click shift and then release shift, and that gives us like a beveled line, but it's extruding it. So if we want an intrusion, we do click shift alt. It's kind of like hard to do. And then press like release shift, and then we get a nice indentation. So the reason we're doing this before Substance Painter is we want to get, this is basically like custom normal map making, if you will. So we're just making like indentations where we want them. So you can get some nice paneling here. This is the reason I have transform or symmetry on. Okay. So click, so hold click, shift, alt, hold those down, release shift. And as you can see, this is like so many polygons. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use a method called high to low poly baking. Okay, and then I can go back to my reference image to double check it. I'll be like, okay, yeah, that looks good. I usually don't use ZBrush for hard surface modeling just because it is super hard. Let me give you like a brief introduction to what it is. So basically, if I want like something jutting out from this looks like way too circular. So what I do is I go into my standard brush, I hit F to get flattened, and then I try to smooth it out the best I can. But before I do that, I actually want to go back to my standard, define some of the shape beforehand. So if I want it like to be a nice square right here, then I go to flatten, try to get like a nice like flat surface. As you can see, it's like really hard to do, so I'm not gonna bother with that. There's a lot of better tutorials out there which use like the clay buildup brush and then flatten, but for our purposes this is fine. So as you notice on the reference image, it has these nice little crescent indentations. Alright, so we're going to try to replicate that. So I'm going to teach you the deformation tool. Deformation. It's just a fancy word of saying like, oh, I want it to inflate or deflate or whatever. So if I if I press Control, you can see I can get circles. So if you want like custom shapes, you could do like, and then Control Alt to kind of like define it a bit more. But for this tutorial, I'm just gonna do the bare bones basics of just Control and like make sure my cursor is in one spot most of the time. Control Alt. Okay. It is a lot of trial and error, but alright, let's see. If we go to deformation, you have to scroll down using right click, because it's stupid. Alright. I don't want to sound too jaded, but it is kind of stupid. So if we control click, that inverts the mask, so we're only affecting the area that we want to. We can go down to inflate, decrease that, makes a nice indentation. This is about the extent of my like hard surface modeling that I do. I just press shift to smooth it out, but that looks bad, so I'm just gonna keep it as is. So that's how I get a lot of the detail I want. I just like create a mask because it gives me a little bit more control than just like doing like oh, that's flattened. Whoops, standard. It gives me more control than like these awful looking like beveled pieces of crap. So I just do a mask. And then control click. Then inflate balloon. That's pretty awful. So you can create whatever you want. I'm just gonna stick with these two because it's simplest. I'm gonna save this. Always save your work in ZBrush. Sometimes it'll allow you to have the most recents in the lightbox, so you don't have to worry about crashing. I'll just call this simple wall 01V for version. Sometimes if you just leave it as a number rather than a letter at the end, it'll corrupt the file. Anyway, if you press F, that it always disappears, which scares the hell out of me. So just press F to frame it again. Also, if you have too much stuff on the screen and you're not sure how to get rid of it, like say you have like this giant like amorphous circle like in your viewport in your face, just press Control N and that resets the viewport. So if I accidentally like drew out more of these and I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? I'm just like, okay, I'll just Control N and then click and drag one out, go to edit again, and you're perfectly fine. Alright, the last thing I think I'll show you is the radius symmetry tool. So this allows you to have all of these different brushes that are affecting it. So if we do local symmetry, for some reason it doesn't like this, but yeah, stuff like this, it really helps if you want to do like floral patterns, not necessarily for sci-fi, but just in case you're doing like Victorian. That looks pretty cool, and it's really quick to just make stuff look pretty awesome. But I like this so far, so I'm gonna be like, okay, let me just hit my, or let me just go back to my first subdivision level, and I'm like, oh, looks like I didn't make any progress. It's really low poly, but I didn't make any progress. Well, that's just because you need to basically put it at maybe subdivision level 2. Actually, let's stick with 1. So I'm actually gonna export this. So I'm gonna save it one more time just in case it crashes. I'm gonna disable this symmetry because it's ridiculous. Go to Z plugin and dock that using this button right here. Alright, so we want to work on a clone because we're actually going to unwrap this. So we want to do work on clone. And we can see it goes to our lowest subdivision level. And we want to unwrap all. This will work if you have like multiple elements. You could do unwrap just because it's one subtool element. But then go to flatten. As you can see, it did a pretty good job flattening it, unwrapping it, whatever. But if you do unflatten, and as you can see, it's good. If you press check seams, all the seams are in the back, which is awesome. That's what we want. Let's say they aren't though. You can also do enable control painting. Attract makes it so that the seam will appear there, while protect makes it so that it's all like protected, so there's no seams that should appear there. So I'm actually gonna flip it, and then I'm gonna unwrap all. And as you can see, the seams just transpose, but I don't really want that, so let me try and go back. Okay, good. Alright, I'm just gonna unwrap again. Alright, do copy UVs, and then go to the last subtool you have, which is here, and then make sure you go paste UVs. That takes the information you just put onto that clone and puts it on. I'm not sure why you need a clone, but I always just do that method in case I mess up the UVs like uncontrollably. So it's just a backup. As you can see, a paintbrush appeared, so that makes us know that we have our unwrapped model. And this is going to help with low poly or high poly to low poly baking. So I'm going to go FBX export import. I'm going to export this. This is the right folder. I'm going to say simple wall underscore high poly. And it'll take like probably a while to export. Okay, cool. So it exported that, so that's our high poly. When we want to go down to the lowest subdivision level for low poly, so export. We can click on this, and we can call this low poly. So we have both our high poly and low poly bakes. So I'll just save this one more time, say yes, X this out. You could say no because you just saved it. Alright, so now what I'm going to show you in the next tutorial is how to apply all your stuff to Substance Painter. Okay, so thank you.